Well, in many ways, I certainly regret being in the position to do this because of the fact that it would be Brother Coates here, and I certainly would rather be out there where you are listening to him. I trust that the things that have been reported today will be things that will indicate that this will be the early on turn for the better in Brother Coates, and we can have him around for much, much longer. And certainly continue to remember him in your prayers. I want to join with the brethren who preceded me concerning our appreciation of these elders. I think they know that, but I think it never hurts to say how much we appreciate good men who love the truth, and who understand what the Bible teaches elders ought to be, and who day by day labor to shepherd the flock and to be what the Bible says that elders, shepherds, superintendents, watchers after souls ought to be. We appreciate these men, love them, and grateful that Brother Michael Hatcher's here. Near and dear friend, faithful gospel preacher, does a tremendous job in his lectureship. Some of us know what that's like, and that is a hard job, a yeoman task, and we appreciate that. And grateful that Karen and Brother Michael have been my wife and my host and hostess this week. We appreciate the boys moving around in their bedrooms so we can have a place. And it's a joy to be over with them, and we love it very much. Appreciated hearing Brother Paul Vaughn present his message. I might mention, since we're talking about restoration matters here, that again, in fact I don't remember the dates right now, but it's immediately following the Memphis School of Preaching lectures. We're going to have a tour of the restoration sites, and Brother Paul Vaughn is going to lead us on that. If you have an interest in being a part of that, then we certainly would like to have you consider going with us. Now, what we did in the last 2 days, on Monday, we tried to set the scene of the situation, the digression in the 19th century. We emphasized there was a period of some 40 to 50 years in which there was great digression. And of course, as it came on toward the year 1900, then it just snowballed and picked up speed. And that really by the time of this beginning of this century, then the division was there. It had been there for some time before that. In fact, in the early 1890s, David Lipscomb began to compile a list of churches that were still remaining faithful. But nevertheless, it was 1906 before the census recorded that the Church of Christ was one religious institution, independent, separate, and apart from another institution, the Christian Church. Then we pointed out also the trouble that prevailed, the lawsuits, etc., to get the mood of the times. When you're studying history and you get into graduate work, they'll talk about, use a German phrase, they'll talk about you need to catch the zeitgeist of the times. That's the spirit of the times. You can't look at it from our eyes and our viewpoints and our environment. You have to try to see how it was then. And that's the way historians will have to do in years ahead, to look back on us when they begin to read all this stuff. And when they get that excellent history from all 3 volumes of Acts on the Root by Brother Rice and all the bound volumes of Contending with the Faith, that'll help them get the zeitgeist of the times. And of course, Firm Foundation might have part to play in some of that. But nevertheless, that those things do help. That's what these papers like this that actually document situations, they're a historian's paradise as far as research is concerned. And that's what a true historian does. So we've tried to do some of that. Now I might mention this. Brother Coates has done an exceedingly good job in a given specialized area in this Unity Forum business. And I urge you to read that material and realize how he's helped focus in on just how the Christian church, when it came to existence, they began to already in 1900 lose members, and immediately they sought to seek a unity and diversity approach. That's don't knock down the barriers that they had erected due to their unwillingness to abide by only those things authorized by the Scriptures, leave undone things not authorized and things prohibited. Well, not satisfied with that, then they began to do the things, and we studied this yesterday in this particular series of studies. Now, when we come down to the time of about 1934, remember we pointed out that N.B. Hardeman's debate with Boswell on mechanical instrumental music pretty well shut down things as far as unity efforts. But it wasn't over. They still had the mentality of there is some sort of way we can agree to disagree and we can all be together. At least those in the Christian church and certain gullible people, if that's being kind to call them that, in the Church of our Lord, thought that such could be. There was a committee appointed sometime before 1934, and then that committee, it was about 1934 I think, my memory serves me correctly, But a fellow by the name of James DeForest Murch, from about that time on up, I think he died in maybe the early 80s or 70s, I'm forgetting which now. But he also wrote quite a good volume of the Christians Only, a very large volume, which he deals with the Restoration Movement. Problem was, when he got down to matters of which we're now speaking, he was very biased, of course, and made us out the bad guys. As I said yesterday, Brother Earl West produced especially the first and second volumes of his Search for the Ancient Order to counteract that kind of thing and record history as it really happened, if you please. But nevertheless, this fellow was appointed with the idea of bringing peace among those now known as the Christian Church. What it really did was to begin to accentuate what is now known as the independent Christian Church, and to make a division there that would allow, well, I think it was around 1967 or 68, for a separation by those people from what is now known as the disciples of Christ. And it became official, although it existed for a long time then. He was a part of this movement. Now, after Murch and his cohorts divided the Christian Church over the Christian Missionary Society, they founded, and I've never understood why they wanted to do this, except they wanted their own control and not somebody else controlling it. They founded a missionary society. It was almost identical to the one that they opposed. Murch says a new agency, the Christian Missionary Fellowship, that is, we'll call it society, I suppose, has been created, which its founders believe combines the best features of the early organized work and the modern independent missions. Now, these things were working among them almost as if they were so-called unity meetings. And this is, again, hasten to say, not the unity that comes by only doing what's authorized, Colossians 3:17, the unity set out in God's platform for unity, the unity of the Spirit. The unity of the Spirit is revealed in the New Testament in Ephesians 4. This new organization, or missionary society, of, as they call themselves, centrist or conservative Christian church, and I'll pause here and say quickly, there's nothing conservative about them. They're just not as willing to go as far as certain others, and they're not conservative. Don't be found guilty of calling the independent Christian church conservative. Well, they may be conservative if you compare them with the disciples of Christ, but almost everything else is too. Because everybody's wild as them, they make a Methodist look conservative. And that's not just being facetious, that's just the way they are. In fact, what is the university, Brother Eddie, over Fort Worth? It came from us, TCU. I hear another Eddie back there. TCU, Texas Christian University. It now is officially designated for disciples of Christ ministerial studies as well as the Methodists. So that shows you how far they've come in less than 100 years. Now, in 1933, Murch wrote continuously in Christian Action, a publication of the Christian Standard, and Jimmy Lovell took up the same cry in his paper Action. And that, of course, some of you will remember very well, was around. Murch was calling for spiritually committed persons in homes, churches, and communities using specially designed Bible studies. Christian Action conferences were held in all parts of the nation. All of it really set up around what we've been studying as the union or unity works, efforts. And it was through this Christian Action that they intended to infiltrate the churches of Christ and to teach us that mechanical instruments, music, and worship was really an indifferent matter. Now again, I remind you of what you've heard in recent years and how these things just don't change. And this, of course, is in the 1930s, and of course, harken back to what we studied earlier back in the 19th century, and there's nothing new under the sun. A fellow by the name of George A. Klingman was among the first in 1932 to enter fellowship with the Christian church. Now, Brother G.K. Wallace makes an interesting comment. He said when he entered, and this is not found in Brother Coates' material, but when he entered Abilene Christian College, he tells, in 1924, the then president, Matzo Baxter, refused to keep George A. Klingman on the faculty because he was not sound in the faith. College presidents, boards, go thou and do likewise. Now, it may mean there won't be a college when you get through dismissing all of them that are that strict, but nevertheless, that does say there was a little difference in those days than now. Now, as we pursue this further, we need to realize that developing out of all of this was what was the biggest effort, I suppose, up until recent years of an effort to have a unity meeting. And Claude E. Whitty of Detroit, Michigan joined the bandwagon of the Murch movement. And Murch and Whitty then started to work together. They had a 5-point program. Number 1, prayer. Number 2, survey. See how many people believe and want to work with it. Number 3, friendliness. Now, isn't that a wonderful thing? Fellowship meetings. This is the pattern of similar unity movements that are always around, it seems like. Cooperation. Work together in common enterprises. And then study and discussion. Now you notice that really if they do these things, they're already in fellowship. He described fellowship. If you can do this with folks, you're already in fellowship. You think they didn't know that? Well, some of my brethren don't know that. The first national unity meeting was held in Detroit, Michigan in May of 1938. And then in 1939 there was another unity meeting in Indianapolis. And Murch and his crowd felt ready to, we could say, grind the organ. And W.R. Walker delivered a speech in which he thought he could defend the instrument by the silence of the Scriptures. Does this sound still the same thing as being used nowadays? Edwin R. Errett, editor of the Christian Standard, tried to defend their position in an exchange with Ashley O. Bowles, who was then editor of the Gospel Advocate. And Brother Bowles so successfully defended the truth in Indianapolis that the Christian church adopted a less direct attack on the Lord's church. James DeForest Murch, when he went to Columbus, Ohio, and delivered a speech on what I believe about instrumental music, he then claims to have a new approach to the problem. You notice, now I hope you're catching the drift of this in the last 2 days up through today. They're always coming up with a new approach. Nobody will ever go back to the same old inspired New Testament of Jesus Christ and the way it authorizes as the ground for the way that you have unity. They're always wanting something besides what the Bible said. And this, of course, has been the same claim for a number of years, even coming after that. Julian Hunt, Burton Barber, of course, then W. Carr Ketcherside, Leroy Garrett, and those fellows. Brother Wallace, of course, debated Hunt and Barber and some others on these lines, and that never helped them any time that happened, because as the Boswell-Hardeman debate or Hardeman-Boswell debate, it always shut down all the shenanigans that these fellows want to bring out to cloud the issue and get away from the real problem. They don't accept the authorized teaching of the New Testament to determine right and wrong. So this effort to subvert and make the organ or the instrumental music acceptable was even aided and abetted by a fellow by the name of E.L. Jorgensen. If you ever study much of Brother Floyd Wallace Jr.'s writings, you'll see his name come up considerably, and he's always a target. And he was rightfully so, because he was involved in a number of efforts to corrupt the church. In 1950, Ernest Beam out in California launched a paper entitled The Christian Forum, and he took up the plea of the Christian church. But men like Brother Wallace and G.C. Brewer aimed their guns on him and exposed that situation. And again, it's the continued same situation that we're noticing on throughout. Now let me drop back for a moment to Brother Bowles' comments regarding the Murch-Whitty movement in the late 30s and very early 40s. Brother Bowles, Gospel Advocate, and after Brother Goodpasture took over, really dwelt on this matter. I'm saying that now, and as you notice Brother Coates' material, he will quote much from the Advocate. And he has the same reason of doing this, because the Advocate's stand then was right. But you're going to see in the last number of years, when they begin to deal with such things, it's not at all like it was in those days. And that's because the powers that be at the Advocate are, to say the least, insisted in compromising. But Brother Bowles had this to say regarding the movement of Murch and Whitty. A persistent and consistent opposition toward compromising with the Christian church has been made. The churches of Christ have nothing to yield or give up. They occupy the firm ground of New Testament teaching and practice. To oppose compromising is to oppose these unity meetings. Couldn't be more succinct, plain, bold, frank, and candid than that, and it's the truth. And brethren, there need to be said no more any time such as these meetings want to be proposed. We're right where we were with the truth when they left us, and if they want to come back to the truth, let them come back to where we now are as we advocate only as thus saith the Lord for what we believe in practice. The editor of the Advocate printed numerous editorials, as I said. In 1938 alone, the pages of the Gospel Advocate were filled with strong opposition to the unity movement. And we need to keep this in mind, as I said, when it comes down to later matters about the Joplin Summit and Restoration Forums that have been around. It was a fiasco, that is, the Murch-Whitty affair, because they just simply could not get over the brethren when the brethren stood with the truth. And they never can. It's when we give up the old paths, doing only what's authorized, that we've got our problems. Now, coming on with this, a Christian church in Los Angeles, California proposed some sort of unity meeting and invited Brother John Allen Hudson to help in the affair. He wrote about this in the Gospel Advocate, April 3rd, 1941. And Hudson frankly stated that the effort was not a unity meeting simply because a discussion of the differences between right and wrong would not be allowed. That's rather interesting. And of course it was exposed at that time. He pointed out that the real problem was a respect for authority on this issue. Keep in mind, brethren, if you've been here and when you read the book, it's always that same thing. And when you get through reading the secular history, then go right on back to the New Testament and you'll see it's always the same thing there. When you go back to the Old Testament, you'll see that there are always those who are crying out, come down to the plains of Ono and let's have a good get-together and let's just do everything like we want to and never bring up our differences. But it was a matter of authority then in the Old Testament. It was in the New Testament, in the first century. It has been in the 19th century. And it is to this present time. If there's a lesson to be learned, then there it is. Men don't change their approach when it comes to trying to compromise the truth. Also, as we notice that in Columbus, Ohio, sometime about then, there was a unity meeting set up. It's interesting that W.R. Walker of the Christian Church was not very happy about the affair because no loyal congregation in Columbus was consulted and no loyal preacher was invited. And that was a report made, and that's one reason this Christian church preacher didn't like it, because they're trying to run around the end to get what they want. As an addendum to these matters, Brother B.C. Goodpasture wrote, quote, any scheme of union which ignores the causes of division is foredoomed to failure. The churches of Christ occupied the ground on which they stood before the division came. You see where men stood who stood correctly. Again, Whitty was involved in all this, and he whimpered and whined around. That's the way I know how to sum up these things. But the brethren, such as in the Advocate, continue to make statements like I just read from Brother Bowles and Brother Goodpasture. And that's still the position that we hold, because it's right. The Merch-Whitty plan was nothing more than a denominational plan for union. When such groups met, they would decide to uphold denominational division. What do you have at the great, marvelous, down the yellow brick road, Jubilee? That's exactly what it is. It's simply trying to say, let's all just get together, smile at one another, tell each other how good we are, how great God is, and we never bring out anything about what Jesus really wants done as far as specifics are concerned. Brother Bowles asked, Brother Whitty, what will the Christian church have to give up before you will unite with it? You ever hear that kind of thing coming out of these fellows today? No, it's always us giving up our stand, a stand very well represented by Brother Bowles and Brother Goodpasture, which is as biblical as you can get. It's us having to give up those things. And that's not going to happen as long as people are faithful in all that the Bible has to say about what being faithful is. He says, Brother Bowles did to Whitty, show us how to unite with the Christian church and quit piddling around with annual conventions. That's a quote. It's exactly what he said. Well, that showed you the position, those folks, and they weren't going to move. Brother Bowles correctly stated that this was an example of the kind of unity proposed by a Merch-Whitty plan. It was compromised to the core. The Gospel Advocate was relentless in opposing and exposing the Merch-Whitty affair. And we need to realize that they were right then, and when they have changed for what was right as the Bible defines the right, and they're wrong now in the looseness with which they deal with those particular matters. And they don't deserve to be called any longer, and I think faithful brethren have known this, the old reliable. It's just not true. Now, coming on up to closer times, from August the 7th through the 9th, 1984, a, quote, Restoration Summit, unquote, was conducted on the campus of Ozark Bible College in Joplin, Missouri. The meeting was planned by Alan Cloyd and Dennis Randall. They worked with the Vultee Church in Nashville, Tennessee. Don DeWelt and Kim Idleman of the Independent Christian Church helped plan this whole affair. DeWelt was president of College Press. He's since died. Idleman was president of Ozark Bible College. And of course it followed the same exact pattern and disposition of heart that all these others did. And I suppose we do not need to forget, some of us surely won't, that the blessings of videotape came into play at that time in the hands of Brother Joe McDonald. Some of those people just didn't realize what Brother McDonald was carrying around with him when he went into those rooms and captured things that they just did not want to have captured. Well, of course, there were two sides before the summit, and when the summit ended, there were still two sides. People who upheld the truth and people who opposed the truth. Now, in the book, Brother Coates lists the people that attended there, and I think that's interesting that he would record for posterity those particular things so that people in the upcoming years can see those particular matters. It's highly significant that of those selected by DeWelt and Idleman, 14 of the men were affiliated with colleges operated by the Christian Church. In several issues of Contending for the Faith, articles appeared from various brethren in which the Joplin Summit was discussed. Victor Eskew wrote a review in the January 85 issue of the paper. And he gave a review of a review by both Brother Rubel Shelley, and of course Shelley was praising the summit. Eskew pointed out 4 things that Shelley said the summit was not. 1, it was not a meager attempt. 2, it was not an exercise of compromise. 3, it was not a symposium debate on instrumental music. And 4, it was not a brawl. Well, then what was it, I asked? Compromise. A rejoinder to Shelley's assertions was effectively made by Brother Eskew. And again, every time, because once the pattern was set in the 19th century, early part of this century, they followed it regardless of the different names of the so-called unity forums or whatever. They continued right down the same approach. Every unity movement which has ever happened has been a compromise effort. The name Shelley is synonymous with compromise, and so are certain others. Shelley, who declared, quote, meaningful exchange can take place between the two groups of believers, unquote. And again, another quote, we can exchange speakers. Another quote, it would be wonderful to worship together and to have some pulpit exchange. Well, again, this is not trying to determine what separates us and get rid of the problem according to the Bible. This is an effort to say we're going to fellowship to see if we can figure out how we can fellowship. Well, once you start that kind of thing, you're already into it. Brother Doug McClish, who's here, had some interesting things to note. He commended the speech by Brother Hardeman Nichols on authority. Where does it end? And Nichols presented his case quite effectively. I viewed that by tape. I thought he did probably the best job of anybody there. But I think it's rather interesting. I'll give you this little happening that took place the next February at the Fred Hardeman Lectures. One afternoon after the open forum, I saw Brother Nichols, and I went over to congratulate him on having done what I considered to be, under the circumstances, the best job on the teaching of ascertaining Bible authority and doing things only as they're authorized. I did not know him that personally. I just thought if there was going to be anything like that, that was his speech showed more what ought to have been done. I was unaware that already he had been feeling quite a bit of the sting of others who had criticized the thing, because this was several months later. All I did was walk up to him on the side of the auditorium there and introduce myself and tell him how much I appreciated his effort in what he had to say. And from that point forward, I was dodging bullets, because he let me know in no uncertain terms that his was not the only good speech, that others were just as good as his. He was completely tired of people trying to put down any kind of unity effort, and here it went. And needless to say, I thought, well, I was only going to say thank you. But I began to realize what I've been trying to emphasize, and Brother Coates does such a grand job of, that these things are nothing but efforts, even though some well-meaning brethren might involve themselves in it. The total summation of the thing is that they're efforts in compromise. The final major speaker was Brother Reuel Lemons, whose topic was, where do we go from here? In discussing this, Brother Dub informs us that Reuel implied that the issues, and I'm quoting, quote, implied that the issues which divide us are really only matters of personality and opinion by calling them, quote, spike fences, unquote, which we have built, quote, sky high, unquote. It was a sleazy compromise effort to charge faithful brethren of being sectarian. Well, you just simply must realize that they are doing what is sectarian, and they deserve the label. Now let's get a little bit of Wayne Coates' comments here. We don't want to lose his flavor. I have 18 ducks, Brother Wayne says, on the lake behind my house, and every last one of them quacks exactly alike. Please take notice of how the liberal, compromising, apologizing characters blow and quack alike regarding sectarians. I just never did fear sectarians or run and hide in some safe place when those boogers came around. It has to be that liberals live in mortal fear of those lowly creatures whom they so flippantly demean as sectarians. Now, Lemons decreed that unity already existed. Now, that's interesting. Why are you having some sort of fellowship effort? The unity is already there. Lemons decreed that such already existed between the two born-again groups. They just need to acknowledge it. It has become well known that Alan Cloyd objected to having the tract of Brother H. Lil Bowles' speech on display, which was given on May 3rd, 39, Unity Affair in Indianapolis. And of course, this is where we all begin to be exposed to the irenic spirit. Have you forgotten that? I know we haven't forgotten knuckleheads, because that means we don't have the peaceable irenic spirit. And of course, the irenic fashion, Cloyd apologized for the presence of the Bowles tract. He averred that, quote, it was perhaps reprinted by someone who does not understand the distinction between the independent Christian churches and the disciples of Christ. Cloyd wrote, I quote, I did in fact remove the tracts in question. They were uninvited materials which were not appreciated. Brother Bowles' language is abusive and crude. I did not feel that these tracts would be in the best interest of the meeting. Well, I think you got part of it right. They weren't in the best interest of the meeting, and I'm sure he didn't appreciate them. But they were not in any way, form, or fashion abusive or crude. He continued, quote, those who ignorantly distribute such tracts apparently are not aware that the Christian church has in fact done two of the three things Bowles called for. That's just a blowing in the wind, is all that is. To know something of the excessive and shallow, thoughtless, absurd mindset of a few of the compromisers who had to say something about it, Brother McLeish gives a few quotes. From the marvelous Randy Mayhew, marvelous I put there, we read, quote, but we each learned of the integrity, let that sink in, the sincerity, the true but honest difference of opinion. Integrity. Well, I think that's the joke of the year, or sometime. Then Calvin Warpula, Brother Warped Warpula wrote, quote, the reformers asked, in quote within quotes, in whom do you believe? In whom do you believe? Not what do you believe. Then he quoted Monroe Hawley, who stated, quote, we are generally more committed to the Bible than to Christ, and the two are not the same. And see, we're all already, according to Rule Lemons, we already believe alike. We're already unified. So I guess we all believe this. And then, of course, I must go back over this. And that is the little huddle group that Brother McDonald caught on camera and recorded for posterity or whatever else. Furman Curley and Wayne Kilpatrick's infamous conversation. Curley, if we could start in our congregation doing some more studies in restoration history outside our own branch and look at the distinctions between the conservative instrumentalists and the Christian church, the sentence was unfinished. Kilpatrick, well, I wonder too if bringing Christian church preachers in for a class like this might be good. Let them come in and tell their history in a class situation. I think you could ease from the class and pulpit. Curley, right? And you could get by with telling history. Kilpatrick, yeah. And then here's the good one from Curley. Curley, whereas if they were telling doctrine. And while they're telling history, they could tell enough, so Kilpatrick said, doctrine to let us know that, hey, we believe alike. So much of it. So that may be a beginning point in the classroom. Now, can you see B.C. Goodpasture or H. Leo Bowles, who Furman Curley fills their he sits in a chair. He doesn't fill their editorial chair. Can you see them in this situation? Now, what happened, Brad? Did the Bible change from 1938 and 39 and 40 to to this time period? No. These men are gullible men who gave up in their own minds, to some extent, one way or the other, the importance of these things. Well, let me move on a little further. We've got about 15 minutes left now. And I don't know why he's trying to cut me off. I had to sit up here and listen to all this stuff earlier. But nevertheless, in March here, let me just give you a little history. This thing continues on. Now, we've taken our stand. It's been exposed. A lot of this fight went on back in the 80s. And yet it's not over. It's dwindled down. In March of 85, the Garnett Road Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I lived there then. Marvin Phillips preached there at that time, had a Restoration Unity Forum, which was truly a sort of a secret affair. And let me mention something that happened. The preacher's meeting there, several of us went. He was up trying to tout this thing. And I asked him, and I said, I don't want to give you any kind of a general comment. I want to take your good buddy, DeWelt. I said, do you believe DeWelt by what he believes right now without giving up anything is fully acceptable to God where he is? He wouldn't answer the question. I said, well, let me put it this way. Do you believe Don DeWelt is walking in the light, if Jesus is in the light, and therefore has fellowship with God and with all others who are walking in that same light? Well, he didn't want to answer it. He said, well, let me tell you what I believe about that. I said, well, just, is he or is he not? I said, he wanted to quibble. So I said, well, let me tell you what I understand 1 John 1:7 means, and I'll let the Bible give its own divine commentary. I said, Acts 2:42 says of the early church, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine. And that's the point I want to emphasize, so I went through the quote and came back to that. I cannot conceive of anybody walking in the light as Jesus in the light and not at the same time continuing steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine, or vice versa. One tells you what the other one is. To walk in the light as he is in the light is to continue steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine. I said, now, Brother Phillips, is he where he is now and what he's believing, walking steadfast in the apostles' doctrine? Well, next week I'll be here prepared to answer that. And I tell you, that's the truth. There were others there. And later on we reported it in Contending for the Faith and signed our names to it regarding what happened. And that's exactly the position. They don't want to answer any straight question. Well, July 7th through the 9th, 85, found a number of people out in Pepperdine at Unity Forum number 3. Speakers were some fine upstanding fellows, Andy Mayhew, Carol Osborne, Alan Cloyd, Rural Emmons, Monroe Hawley, Everett Ferguson, Dennis Randall, Frank Pax, some wonderful characters. Unity 4 was conducted at Milligan College, Johnson City, Tennessee, April 29th through 30th, 86. Phillips, Shelley, Cloyd, John Jones, Calvin Walker were there. The 5th Unity meeting in 87 at Cincinnati, Ohio. One report of the meeting declared, quote, the a cappella brethren outnumbered the instrumental folk more than 2 to 1. That was reported in one body in the summer of 87. A number of things were said about that. Forum 6 was conducted November 1 through 3, 1988, hosted in Cuyahoga Falls Church in Akron, Ohio. There were 113 people present from the Christian church. 76 said they were from the Church of Christ. There were 4 from the Disciples of Christ. 4 said they had no preference, and 1 responded, either one's fine with me. I thought, well, that's pretty well a good way of approaching it. Forum 7 was conducted in September of 89 at Lincoln Christian College. Phillips, Olin Hicks, boy, they're really expanding now. Monroe Hawley, Rural Lemons, Denny Boltinghouse, there's a fine fellow. Joe Schubert, Kay Watts, Doug Foster, another Calvin Warpula, and Walt Yancey were involved. And then Restoration 8, 1990, Garnett Road Church, Shelley, Jerry Jones, Marvin Phillips. Phillips said the Church of Christ has preached unity more than anyone and practiced division as much as any denomination. Well, that is complete tangling of things up. Naturally, you got problems. Are you going to say that because Paul and the Holy Spirit and the other writers, the Holy Spirit inspiring all the writers of the New Testament and dealing with all the problems they had in the churches, were practicing division while they preach unity? No. It's trying to deal with the people who won't live up to things. And that's the reason Paul had to write what he wrote, even as the Lord put together the New Testament. Phillips said, I see some churches having both instrumental and non-instrumental services. Again, mark that. The 9th Forum fiasco was staged in Portland, Oregon. Again, Marvin Phillips, Jerry Jones, Jeff Wally, Monroe Hawley, Milton Jones, Philip Slate. And for what it would profit, only the Skillman Avenue Church in Dallas, Texas would be able to surmise when it agreed to host Forum 10, make-believe hocus-pocus event. That's what Brother Coates called it. November the 10th through the 12th, 92. They beat the so-called Unity drum. Furman Curley, Carol Osmond, Ian Farrell, Ian Anderson, Howard Norton, Charles Hodge, wonderful people who love the truth, tongue-in-cheek. a quartet of speakers went to Joplin, 93. Then Wonderful Voice Money welcomed the visitors of the 12th Form, and Abilene Christian used to be university. And then on down you go, more and more of them. Restoration 15, I skipped a few. Oh, now what? Florida Christian College in Orlando, Kissimmee, Florida. Here, Rubel Shelley, Denny Boldinghouse, and James Smith, and Jack Exum, and Robert Shannon, and all of these characters. Now, I would close it here saying, as was true back in the days of the 19th century when they gave up the plea for New Testament Christianity, meaning doing only what's authorized, into the matters of the 20th century, and we've covered all of it as best we could. All of these are simply efforts to compromise and not come back to the truth and get everybody to say, everybody's all right, you're okay, and I'm okay. That is
this hour, Brother Howell Bigham. Did I get it right that time? I didn't. Well,